Hello, welcome back to another episode of Coping with COVID. My name is Amanda Taylor, and I am a clinical therapist here at Holy Family Memorial Behavioral Health. And I appreciate you joining me here today to learn new ways to cope with all of the changes that we've got going on in our lives right now and that have been going on for quite some time. All of these changes can lead to emotions that can feel troublesome, all the way from sadness to anger to irritation and boredom. So today I'm going to talk about a strategy to cope with some of these more extreme emotions through changing and challenging thought processes. So by changing thoughts that are maybe distorted or extreme, this can help to manage some of those emotions that come up a little bit more effectively. So typically, I'm going to talk a little bit about the process of kind of our thoughts and how that leads to behaviors, how to know if something's helpful or not, and then give you some strategies on challenging and changing some of those thought patterns that are maybe not so helpful. So I will first talk a little bit about this process of how we go from information coming into our senses all the way to then, what we do, how we behave based upon that. Typically, it's a pretty fast process. So what usually happens is something occurs in your environment, something you see, hear, smell, taste, feel. So all of that information comes in and you have to decide how you're going to interpret that. Oftentimes we interpret that information in helpful ways, and then you have a thought. Your thought then leads to a feeling, and that feeling or emotion then prompts you to do something. You have a behavior. When this process goes well, you have thoughts that lead to a feeling that's appropriate, that's helpful, that then leads to a behavior that's going to move you forward towards your goals, or that's going to help you to get through a situation. But then there's times when maybe our thoughts can become distorted, extreme, irrational. And those are the thoughts that we want to work on challenging, because those are the thoughts that typically lead to emotions and feelings that are not helpful. And then that leads to behaviors that possibly make the situation worse or don't make it better. So when we address those thoughts, it can then change the feelings and then change the behaviors. So I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the thought processes that are unhelpful or that are maladaptive. They don't help you to get through situations. They keep you stuck. So these thought patterns are ones that you want to look for to know that maybe you need to challenge some of those because they're not leading to any feelings or behaviors that are productive. So some of the different thought patterns could include magnification or minimization. So this is going to be like exaggerating or minimizing the importance of a particular event. So when you magnify a particular thing that doesn't need to be magnified, or you exaggerate, then it can seem like things are worse than they really are. Other things can be catastrophizing. So seeing a catastrophe in a situation. So it could be that, for example, maybe you had some reduction in your hours at work and your finances are going to be less this month. So seeing only the worst possible outcome could be an exaggeration. So maybe thinking that you're going to not be able to pay your bills, you're going to lose your apartment, you're going to not be able to pay your electric. And then that leads to maybe a high level of anxiety that leads to behaviors that don't allow you to deal with that situation. Overgeneralizing, so it could be making broad interpretations from a single event or a few events. It could be jumping to conclusions, so interpreting the meaning of a situation with little or no evidence. So making assumptions when you really don't have the evidence for the situation. Could be fortune telling. So it could be the expectation that a situation will turn out badly, even without adequate evidence. So it could be that, possibly your kids are at home, you're having to, help them with their schoolwork, and maybe they're struggling a little bit. It's hard to get them on track to do their homework, and so you kind of have this expectation that they're going to fail. They're not going to be able to get their work done. They're going to have to repeat this grade in school over again, but not really having the evidence for that, and maybe not taking into consideration the teacher is saying that, it's okay if they don't get a couple assignments, and just let them, help them as much as you can, and knowing that, everyone's struggling right now. It could be disqualifying the positive. That's a really popular one that gets in the way a lot. So recognizing only the negative aspects of a situation while ignoring any positive aspects of the situation. So it may be focusing for right now on things that you can't do. You can't go to the store. You can't have a barbecue with your family. You can't, go to a water park, or you can't, do certain things. So when you focus on that, then it leads to maybe those more intense emotions of anxiety or worry. So these are all distortions, things that get in the way of being able to think in a healthy way. Healthy thinking is going to lead to an emotion, could be positive or negative emotion, that is going to help you to then have a behavior that gets you through a situation, that helps you to respond more effectively. So a couple ways that you can challenge some of these unhelpful thoughts could be questioning it. So it's asking yourself, is this thought realistic? What evidence do I have for this thought? Am I maybe ignoring some other pieces of evidence? Am I only focusing on what's negative, or what is something that is going to prove my thought? Or is there evidence that I'm, not considering right now? Sometimes it could be asking yourself, okay, what would a friend think about this? Or what would somebody else important in my life that I trust their opinion, how might they think about this? It could be looking at how might I look at a situation more positively? If I thought more positively, how would things be different? Could be asking yourself, will this matter a year from now? How about 5 years from now? If I can't go to, this Memorial Day cookout that we usually have, is this going to impact me a year from now or 5 years from now? Sometimes it might be just putting things in perspective. So if you're able to kind of notice some of those thought distortions that are leading to those more extreme emotions that then lead to behaviors that are not helpful, you can know, once you start noticing them, you can start to challenge those thought patterns by questioning them, asking yourself if there's evidence, or if you're ignoring some other evidence that's contrary to that thought. And once you challenge that, you can come up with a thought that's more balanced, that's more rational, that's going to be more helpful, that's going to help you cope with all the changes that are happening in our lives right now, to help you to grow through this, this challenging experience versus getting stuck. So I'd like to thank you for your time today, and hopefully you can start to notice if you're having some of those thought distortions that lead to the difficulty in coping with all this. So you can now challenge them and be able to deal with things in your life a little bit more effectively. So I'd like to thank you for your time, and have a great rest of your day.